AlJazeera's Tony Bertley is there.
It was a call to arms that was answered by thousands. From the towns and the desert, opposition fighters gathered in AlJazeera to repel an attack by forces loyal to Gaddafi. Their weapons ranged from the powerful tanks and anti-aircraft batteries to those more at home in a museum. There was confusion and disorganization. Shells were fired out. Complaints returned as residents ahead explained they were coming under fire from their own side. What about the capability? I mean, you've got a lot of men here and you've got a lot of weapons. Can the men use the weapons?
God willing, they will learn to use the weapons effectively.
The conviction of the volunteers has to be admired. The capability is open to question. Gaddafi's forces were said to number around 300 men. They attacked the strategically important town of Brega at first light, and witnesses said they began firing indiscriminately.
This I see in the morning. Many people come in mafia for Gaddafi. He killed many people in the morning.
Heavy weapons were sent forward and hundreds of trucks and cars stacked with ammo and guns taken from captured army stockpiles. Casualties came back. Many hurt, he told us, many dead. This doesn't seem to have been a full-fledged assault, more like a probing attack, but it shows that Gaddafi forces are strong, they can strike at will, and that the Libyan leader shows no signs of giving up. Quite the contrary, he's hitting back. 10 kilometers from Brega and more forces congregated. No one seemed to know exactly what was happening. Then a Libyan Air Force bomber circled overhead. Its first bombing run hit close to the center of the fighting near Brega University. The second hit our position. Landing 70 meters away. Miraculously, no one was hurt. Then Gaddafi's fighters fled.
We suddenly saw some Toyota cars with anti-aircraft batteries. They started firing mortar rounds. The shells fell near us.
They left behind spent mortar, shell and machine gun casings and 10 dead civilians. 21 people were wounded, including a 7-year-old boy who survived a bullet lodged in his nose. These people who were killed, were they fighters or were they ordinary people?
Ordinary people. Ordinary people. He is going when Gaddafi's people. He is coming to university.
2 of the bodies were said to be of Gaddafi fighters. It was claimed one carried ID showing he was from Niger in Africa, but it's hard to verify. Despite the howls of bravado, this brazen attack has provoked both fear and anger and reminds everyone of the violent threats of Gaddafi. On Wednesday, we witnessed why the opposition is desperate for a no-fly zone and why it may not have the military capability to liberate all of Libya by force just yet. But this conflict seems far from over, and the question is how many more Libyans are going to die before it is. Tony Bertley, AlJazeera, Brega, Eastern Libya.
Well, protesters are vowing to take their fight to the capital, Tripoli, which is a Gaddafi stronghold. Anita McNaught was allowed limited access by the Libyan government to film this report in Tripoli.
Libyan authorities, keen to demonstrate that Tripoli is not a war zone, invited our Al Jazeera crew onto a helicopter usually reserved for tracking illegal migrants from Africa. Declaring no areas in Tripoli off limits for this flight, our government escort showed us the former People's Assembly building, burnt over a week ago in an early morning riot that has, so far, not been repeated. Across the city on the day we flew, no street battles, no riot police, and in Libya's equivalent of Tahrir Square, Green Square, just a small government-sponsored gathering provides free entertainment around the clock.
Whatever the previous inroads made into the city by the rebels, Tripoli is now a quiet place. But the damage has been done. Tripoli is also paralyzed from the loss of the people who used to work here.
The port is at a standstill. Workers, skilled and unskilled, have fled. And nearby, crowds are still gathering on the docks to board a boat to take them away. At street level in the district of Tajura, this mobile phone company office is still smouldering after it was torched during the anti-Gaddafi protests. Along the entire street, anti-Gaddafi slogans have been painted over, but the shops remain shut. But Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saiful Islam, says there's no reason for concern.
Come on, if they have 2 fires in one house or 2 buildings, maybe, of course, maybe 100 fires. Does it mean that there is everything is collapsed?
Saiful Islam also says that migrant workers are already asking to come back. But at Tripoli airport, no signs that these hundreds of Egyptians camped in squalor are changing their minds about wanting to leave. Anita McNaught, Al Jazeera, Tripoli.
Well, as we said, Anita did only have limited access to the capital. So for more on the situation there, let's speak to Ahmed Shabani, who's a Canadian-Libyan businessman who recently arrived in Dubai after fleeing Tripoli. Thanks for being with us. So tell me what you experienced there and whether the picture that we saw in that report was similar to what you experienced.
Well, the picture that you saw is kind of like the picture that I was in. And when the protests started, they came out with gunfire and shot everybody they can in sight. And everybody scrambled. They went back into their houses and wouldn't come out because they would be killed. And that's exactly what's going on.
So you're in touch with people, as I understand it, who are still in Tripoli. What are they telling you about the state of the opposition movement there now?
They're telling me that they're scared to leave their houses. And there was a few protests in between the period of the time I left, which is the 24th of February, and now, and they would just wipe them out with gunfire, and they would bring in people that you know, girls and young boys and women to chant Gaddafi slogans. Once they've wiped out the area of protest in Fashloum and Sugu Jum'a and Tajura and lots of places where they would just clean the places up with gunfire, and they would bring these pro-Gaddafi people to chant Gaddafi slogans. I mean, it's just a...
So at the moment, what do you think are people going to do? I mean, they're so frightened, you say they won't go outside. So has the momentum from the opposition actually died in Tripoli because of what you've been describing?
It seems as so. I mean, who in their right mind would go out on the street to get shot? The only way you can leave the streets, and I had to do the same when I was there, is to go anywhere on the streets, we had to wear a green flag on our arm or around our neck, or tape a picture of Gaddafi on the car and honk, so we're in support of Gaddafi, so we wouldn't get shot at by mercenaries and anybody that supports Gaddafi loyalists.
So when you speak to people there, are they even worried about talking to you? I mean, are they worried that their phones are being monitored?
Well, there's so many things that are going on that I don't think the phone monitoring is really playing a big part in it right now. I think what's playing a big part of it is the fear that they're instilling amongst everybody to keep them inside the houses. They're trying to keep the streets quiet, as you saw yourself, and they're just trying to make it paint the picture that looks good for the world, that nothing's going on.